In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how the biggest financial illusion in history was built, who profits from it, and why it's about to come crashing down. By the end, you'll understand why your paycheck buys less when billionaires get richer, and what happens when this house of cards finally collapses. Let's start with a question that keeps people up at night. How is the stock market hitting record highs while your life is getting harder? You see the headlines. Dow hits all-time highs. Nasdaq soars. Investors celebrate. Meanwhile, you're working longer hours and can barely afford groceries. Your rent keeps climbing. Your savings are evaporating. And small businesses in your neighborhood are closing forever. Something doesn't add up. For generations, we were told the stock market reflects economic health. When stocks rise, the economy is strong. When they fall, trouble is coming. That was always a lie, but now it's not even a convincing lie anymore. The insanity of modern valuations has gone off the top. Let me give you one example that proves how broken this system has become. Nvidia, a company that makes computer chips. At its peak, it was valued at over $3 trillion as of 2025. Think about that number. $5 trillion. That's more than the entire economy of India, more than all the farmland in America combined. More than every company in Switzerland put together. And what does Nvidia actually do? They make semiconductors. Important? Sure, but they don't feed anyone, they don't house anyone, they don't heal anyone. Yet the market decided this single company is worth more than the nations of billions of people. If that doesn't make you question everything, nothing will. But it gets worse. The so-called Magnificent Seven, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, Meta, Tesla, and Nvidia are now worth about $18 trillion combined. That's more than the economies of Germany, Japan, and India combined. 7 companies, worth more than billions of people working, building, farming, and creating actual value across 3 major economies. This isn't economics, it's fantasy, and we're all pretending it's real. To understand this madness, you need to know one simple truth. Money used to mean something. It was backed by gold, by something real that you could hold. That one link was then severed. Money became paper, and then it became numbers on a screen. And once that happened, the game changed forever. Every crisis after that was solved the same way. Print more money, lower interest rates, and hope for the best. But the real turning point came in 2008. When the financial system nearly died, central banks made a choice. They would save it by creating money out of thin air. Trillions of dollars, injured with keystrokes. They called it quantitative easing. Fancy name for a simple concept. Create money that didn't exist and pump it into the system. Here's the official story. The official story? This money would stimulate the economy and help businesses grow, create jobs, and lift everyone up. The reality? That money never reached you. So there's a name for actually what happened next, and it's called a Cantillon effect. Here's how it works. When new money enters the system, whoever gets it first benefits most. They spend it before the prices rise. They buy assets before values inflate. And by the time that money trickles down to regular people, everything costs more. The opportunity is then gone. So what happened? The banks and corporations that received this flood of new money bought stocks, bonds, and real estate. Those prices exploded. Meanwhile, ordinary people just watched their rent go up and their grocery bills double, as well as their cost of living skyrocket. The rich got richer not because they worked harder or created more value. They got richer because they were first in line when the money printer was turned on, and has been running ever since. For over a decade, interest rates stayed near zero. Think about what that means. Money was free, and companies could borrow billions and pay almost nothing in interest. So what did they do with this free money? Invest in innovation? Build new factories? Raise wages? No. They bought back their own stock. Here's the trick. When a company buys its own shares, fewer shares exist. Basic supply and demand means the price goes up. And the company now looks more valuable without actually becoming more valuable. It's painting over a cracked foundation instead of fixing it. And this happened over and over. Trillions of dollars in stock buybacks. Not because businesses were thriving, but because money was free and financial engineering was easier than actual work. That's why stock prices kept rising, even when the real economy was weak. Not because of growth, but because of manipulation. What we have now isn't capitalism, it's now a faith-based system. The stock market doesn't measure productivity anymore. It measures how much money is flooding into it. It measures belief that central banks will always intervene, that governments will always print more money, that the game will never end. Even the professionals know it's broken. Surveys show that over 90% of fund managers think US stocks are overvalued, and yet they keep buying. Why? Because they have no real choice. When cash earns nothing and bonds pay nothing, everyone believes the music will keep playing, so you have to keep dancing. It's not smart, it's simple survival. And here's where it gets even worse. When asset prices explode, people who own assets get rich. People who don't, they fall further behind every single day. Home ownership used to be achievable. Now it's a fantasy for entire generations. Retirement used to be secure. Now it's fragile and uncertain. Inequality used to be bad. Now it's grotesque. This isn't even accidental. It's the system working exactly as designed. New money goes to those who already have money. Wealth becomes inherited, not earned. And the gap between the haves and the have-nots becomes a chasm that cannot be crossed. But here's the really terrifying part. The more detached the market becomes from reality, the more fragile it gets. This isn't built on innovation or productivity. It's built on faith. Faith that nothing will break. Faith that someone will always save it. But faith, this type of faith, is brittle. One shock, one crisis, one moment where confidence cracks and the entire house of cards collapses. People would suddenly realize that most of what they thought they owned was never real. Trillions in paper wealth would vanish overnight. So why is the stock market at record highs when the economy collapses? Because it's not measuring prosperity anymore. It's measuring liquidity, speculation, and manipulation. The numbers are inflated by money printing and debt, as well as belief, not by productivity and not by real value. That's the grandest illusion ever created. But like every illusion, it depends on everyone believing it. As long as people play the game, it continues. Once they stop believing, once they start demanding reality instead of fantasy, the illusion will evaporate. And when it ends, it'll end, and the truth will get exposed. You can't print real prosperity. You can't create wealth by inflating prices. You simply cannot build a future on debt and illusion. Real wealth comes from building things, from producing, from innovation that improves lives for everyone, and not just the shareholders. But the system forgot that, and now we're gonna be living in the consequences. At some point, this will end, and maybe through inflation that slowly eats away at everything. Maybe through a sudden crash that exposes it all at once. But one way or another, the illusion will break. So the real question is, will you be ready when this happens? Because while Wall Street is celebrating, Main Street should be preparing. The system is broken, and the illusion is cracking. Subscribe to Lion Finance, where we reveal the truth to you, simply and accessibly.